Call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Krupa.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Lilienthal.
Here.
All members are present.
At this time, members of the public may only comment on an item appearing on the agenda. Please adhere to the following. Comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not directed to any individual council member. City Clerk, are there any registered speakers?
Thank you, Mayor. If there's anyone on the Zoom call, now is the time. And Mayor, there's no registered comment.
We will now proceed to closed session.
Mayor, before we proceed to closed session, I wanted to ask the city council to add one item to the closed session agenda. I'm asking the council to add conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. This item came to the attention of the city after the posting of the agenda, and action is required before the next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Meyer, second by Councilmember Brown. We'll do a roll call. Councilmember Krupa,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Mills. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Yes.
Mayor Lilienthal.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
If there is no other business, we will now proceed to closed session. For domestic violence. And HUSD is here for
Test, test. Sounds good. Working on it. Cool.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the October 25th, 2022 regular city council to order. I would like to point out that this meeting is hosted through live stream on the city's website and by Zoom teleconference. City Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Brown. Here. Councilmember Krupa.
Here.
Councilmember Mills. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Lowenthal.
Here.
All members are present.
At this time, we will have our invocation done by Ms. Darrell Lilienthal, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance with Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Attorney,
Thank you, Mayor. We have no items to report out of closed session today.
moving to communications from the public. So there's a 3-minute person time limit when you're speaking. All who wish to speak, just state your name for the record. And right now I'm going to open it up for items not listed on the agenda, beginning with Tom Lodge. Pat Gregory.
Good evening. My name is Pat Gregory. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm going to be speaking about Measure H. In 2016, I voted for Measure U because of promises made by the city council that were put in writing. The city promised enhancements of our police and fire, and in return, the citizens promised to pay for those enhancements by approving Measure U. As of 2022, the citizens have kept their promise of the bargain, their part of the bargain, by providing $65 million in tax payments to the city. But the city has not kept its part of the bargain. Instead, in a very backhanded manner, the city improperly modified Measure U. The city is now completely ignoring their signed resolutions that promised public safety enhancement. We're hearing a lot of excuses. One is that it's difficult to hire new police. I can certainly accept that, but then why did the city continue to spend Measure U money without hiring new officers? 40% of the police Measure U funds have gone to salaries, but there is a net zero increase in police officers. The city is playing a shell game with Measure U money. You will hear people say, oh, it all goes to public safety, but truthfully, it does not. Measure U is paying operating expenses that should be paid for by the general fund. The city is improperly using Measure U funds in an ineffective attempt to resolve the city's financial, not public safety, problems. While claiming transparency, the city never provided an audit in 2017 and 2018 as required by Measure U. Instead, only after citizens' complaints, the city started to use a report that has been advertised as an extra level of protection by the city attorney on the Measure 8 ballot. As I mentioned last time, the accounting firm performing this report does not provide their opinion or conclusion, but states the city is responsible for evaluating components of Measure U. That is not an independent audit and does not comply with Measure U requirements. Every single council member who has been part of the charade should not be reelected this year, next year, or in 2 years. Not only have they represented the usage of Measure U with word games, but they have also misrepresented the financial health of the city. The entire council should be ashamed for pretending that Measure U and H is about public safety. Measure U is being misused to fix the city's financial problems that the city has negligently failed to address. We need to support our police, but we should not condone such nonsense by our city leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat Gregory. Can I have Jerry Ann Franklin?
Sorry. Can you hear me better now? I got last week after this meeting, I got into an accident on Devonshire and Myers. It was completely black out there and I couldn't see where Myers was. So as I was driving down Devonshire, there is now a ditch that you go into because they're putting some kind of plumbing in there. And I was looking for Myers and I couldn't find it. And I went into the ditch. And I'm sorry to say this, but I've been asking for a light out there for at least a year and nothing has happened. So I went online and I did some research. A solar light, a single solar light to be put out there would be $5,000 total for this city. One light. Wouldn't use any money from Southern California Edison, nothing. All you have to do is get bids from various companies and they will put a light out there. Because what's going to end up happening, I don't drive a four-wheel drive car. I am just like, think I'm Wonder Woman and backed myself out and got myself out of this ditch, but it shook me and I was angry. And all I've been asking is for the safety for other citizens so nobody got in an accident. I shouldn't have gone off that road. That shouldn't happen. Next time, and I've said this before, there is going to be a fatality. And because you have all been made aware of this time and time and time again, you're going to be held accountable for it. And you can't say you didn't know. And so they're going to come and they're going to go after the city. And you guys have been talking about the $19,000 sign. Well, what's going to happen when you have someone come after you for our car crash where a child is killed because the car flipped into this ditch? It's not right. It needs to be fixed. And it's not that expensive for the city to just put up a light. That's all it is, a light. And I know I'm blinking, shut up, but it's a serious situation. And Mayor Lilienthal, it's in your area. I looked it up. It's right in your district, right along the thin line. So I'm looking to you to really step up and make this happen. And I also wrote the governor because I was like, somebody's got to do something before somebody gets hurt. And I care too much about our citizens to let that happen. So please do something now. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Thank you, Jerry.
may I ask for some clarification on that issue from our city manager. And by the way, it's my district, District 2. Yes.
Okay, sorry, Mayor.
And I'm hopefully the city manager can bring some, no pun intended, light onto the issue.
Yes, Jerry Ann, we did issue a PO to Unix to install lights, so that is in the process. All right, thank you.
Is Tom, did Tom walk in? City clerk, is there anyone on Zoom with a general?
Thank you, Mayor. If there's anyone on the Zoom call, now is the time to speak, so please raise your hand and I will unmute you. And we'll give you just a few moments. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no public comment.
Is there anyone on Zoom for any items listed on the agenda?
If there's anyone on the Zoom call, please raise your hand now. Now is the time for any other public comments. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no public comment.
All right, at this time, I'm going to close public comment, and may we please have Dale Dillman approach the dais?
So if you'll raise your right hand and you'll repeat after me. I, Dale Dillman, solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. And congratulations.
So at this point, we're going to move to presentations. First, we have the Red Ribbon Week proclamation. Do I have Hemet Unified Cares team available?
Do we have anybody from Hemet Unified School District here tonight? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead with the proclamation. This is honoring Red Ribbon Week. Whereas alcohol and other drug use causes premature death and disability among those living in our cities and communities, and our residents, both youth and adults, our most precious community resources. And whereas it is vital that cities and communities launch visible and effective alcohol and drug prevention activities and programs to educate youth and adults to not use alcohol and drugs. And whereas accessible treatment programs must be in place to help people into recovery and treatment. And whereas local community Red Ribbon committees offer our citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free, and alcohol-free lifestyles. And whereas the 2022-2023 Red Ribbon campaign will commence on October 23rd through October 31st, 2022, using the Red Ribbon campaign theme, Celebrate Life, Live Drug-Free, as a reminder that everyday citizens make significant daily contributions to their communities by being the best that they can be because they live drug-free. And whereas local businesses, government, law enforcement, schools, religious institutions, service organizations, youth, medical providers, senior citizens, military, sports teams, and individuals will demonstrate their commitment to drug-free and alcohol-free healthy lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this designated annual Red Ribbon Week. Therefore, Malcolm Lilienthal, Mayor of Hemet, along with the Hemet City Council, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through October 31st, 2022 as Red Ribbon Week.
Can I have Priscilla and her husband Eric come join me? So they are in charge of grocery outlet on the west end. We have and we wanted to recognize them as one of our grocery stores who employs people with disabilities. So in honor of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we wanted to present this proclamation to Grocery Outlet. So National Disability Employment Awareness Month is held each October to commemorate the many varied contributions of people with disabilities to America's workplaces and economy. The theme for this disability is part of an equity equation, which reflects the importance of ensuring that people with disabilities have full access to employment and community involvement during the national recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. And people with disabilities are a crucial part of our town as valued workers, public servants, business owners, veterans, and family members and friends, and are ingenious and valued contributors in the workplace, classroom, and our community. And the City of Hemet supports programs and employment practices that serve and benefit persons of all abilities to symbolize and support individual dignity, independence, and productive lives for all people. Therefore, myself, along with the Hemet City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month and encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of persons with disabilities throughout our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. No, it's my wife and I have been at this February 2020 is when we started, right when the pandemic hit. So it's been a fun ride, but the continued excellence of this community, it's not always perfect. It's challenging, but we always, the people that we have, everyone in this room and everyone that's outside, we're in service of them. So just understand, every time you walk into our store, whether it's on a Sunday or a Wednesday, we're always here to help you, try to provide value. It's not easy for anybody, you know, and I feel bad that the price of meat is going up. But understand, I love this community with all my heart, my family, my daughter who attends school here. It's a privilege to be in front of all of you right now, and that we thank you. We love this, love everyone who supports us. I know I'm rambling, but okay. I know I'm a crier, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. It's very much a privilege to be in this community. Thank you.
For our next proclamation, could I have Gail Hepner join me up here, please? So this proclamation is a very sobering one, and in many ways it dovetails with the issues that Red Ribbon Week seeks to address. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse. And whereas domestic violence leaves an imprint of fear and hostility, and whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but cross all economic, racial, affectional preference, and social barriers, thereby affecting society as a whole. Whereas in the city of Hemet, adults and children are victims of violence each year. And whereas the city of Hemet Council is committed to restoring the right to freedom from fear in our own homes. Whereas the city of Hemet City Council is committed to restoring the right to freedom from fear in our communities. And whereas in our quest to impose sanctions on those who break the law by perpetrating violence, we must also meet the needs of victims of domestic violence and their children, who often suffer grave financial, physical, and psychological losses. Therefore, Malcolm Lilienthal, Mayor of Hemet, along with the Hemet City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and urge all citizens, agencies, and businesses to work together as a team in our community through prevention, intervention, and educational programs, and to take a stand until society has zero tolerance for domestic violence. And Gail, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Sobering indeed. I wish it wasn't the reason I had to be here tonight, but I really appreciate the city's recognition of domestic violence and the problems that it causes nationally, statewide, and locally for our communities. And I particularly appreciate you mentioning the children. Over 75% of domestic violence calls involve children in the homes who are witnessing that and experiencing long-term impacts from that upbringing. I wanted to tell you, if you indulge me for just a minute, my name's Gail Hepner. I'm the Executive Director for REACH, formerly the Center Against Sexual Assault. And we just recently changed our name because Center Against Sexual Assault did not cover all that we do. We work with survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, and human trafficking, providing crisis intervention, counseling, and a 24/7 crisis hotline. So we're just pleased that we can be here and, just like grocery outlets, serve this community and serve the residents of it, because it's a great place to live and a good place to raise our children. And we need to continue to work together to make it so.
And thank you, Gail, for all that you and your coworkers do on behalf of the victims. It's a tremendously important and valuable and unfortunate traumatic thing for you to have to deal with as well. So we're happy that we have services such as yours.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're going to change gears and move on to public hearings. So the procedures are something like this. The public hearing will be open for comments for those in favor and in opposition, followed by rebuttal to any comments made. The public hearing will then be closed and the city manager may respond to any questions raised by the public. The public will not have an opportunity after that to respond. Discussion will be brought back to council for direction or action.
I think there's a short presentation coming up. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Noah Rao, Public Works Director, City Engineer, here presenting the public hearing item to the community annexation number 21 to the Community Facilities District 2005-1. It's also known as the city's Public Safety Services, CFD. On September 27th, 2005, the council passed a resolution to form CFD 2005-1, and on April 25th, 2006, the council passed a resolution to authorize and designate a boundary for future annexations of territory into the CFD. This public hearing is to consider annexation number 21 for the territory defined as tract 35393 and also known as Saddle Point 2 development. Saddle Point 2 development consists of 145 single-family residential units, 2 parcels, and drainage facilities. The developer, Lennar Homes of California, requested the city assist them in annexing this territory into the existing CFD in order to cover costs associated with public safety within the proposed annexation area. The proposed annexation will have a maximum special tax in the amount of $494.14 per single-family residential unit per year, and these rates will increase annually by the greater of the percentage increase in CPI or 3%. Staff recommendations to the council are to hear any public testimony, adopt resolutions authorizing the annexation of territory, calling a special election of qualified electors regarding establishment of appropriation limits and the annual levy of special tax within the CFD, and then certifying the results of the special election and adding the property to the CFD. This CFD annexation will provide funding for the community's necessary public safety services, increasing quality of life and organizational effectiveness. We do have our CFD expert consultant here this evening if you have any other questions for him.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? All right, if there's no comments from the council, I'm going to open public hearing. City Clerk, do we have any registered comment?
Thank you, Mayor. There's no registered public comment, but I'd like to call out to the Zoom call. If there's anyone who'd like to speak, now is the time to raise your hand, and I will unmute you shortly. I'll give you just a few moments. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no public comment.
Well, with that, I'm going to close public hearing, and City Clerk, can you read off special election results for CFD 2005-1?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this ballot is for a special landowner election. We received this ballot on October 20th, 2022. It's for the Community Facilities District number 2005-1, Public Safety Services Annexation number 21. And we received unanimous 34 votes for assessor parcels 454,020,056 in the affirmative of yes.
If there are no comments from the council, do I have a motion?
I move approval of 14A.
Second.
Council, please cast your votes. It's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Meyer, second by Councilmember Brown. That motion passes 5-0.
Same thing again, 14B, public hearing to consider establishing City of Hemet Community Facilities District number 2022-02.
Yes, good evening again. On September 13th, 2022, the council completed the first step in this CFD formation process by adopting a resolution of intention and setting the date and time for this public hearing today. This is the same boundary as the previous annexation. The public hearing is to consider a number of actions ultimately form the CFD and authorize the levy of a special tax within its boundaries. This proposed CFD is composed of a special tax A and a special tax B. Special tax A provides funding and maintenance and operation of authorized facilities that are not funded by special tax B, and it includes streetlights, landscaping in the city right-of-way, monuments, graffiti abatement, and stormwater facilities. The maximum annual assessment is $556 per single-family residential unit. Special tax B provides funding for maintenance of the landscaping and stormwater facilities, drainage basins, and an earth and flood control channel, perimeter landscaping, and 2 HOA parks. Maintenance of special tax B improvements shall be the responsibility of the property owners association pursuant to a dormancy agreement with the city. The dormancy agreement states that special tax B shall not be levied in any year unless and until the city determines that special tax B improvements have not been maintained by the property owners association to a standard acceptable to the city. The staff recommendations is to hear any public testimony, adopt resolutions establishing an appropriations limit, calling a special election of qualified electors regarding the establishment of appropriations limit and the annual levy of special tax within the CFD, declaring the results of the special election and directing the recording of a notice of special tax lien. Then lastly, introducing an ordinance authorizing the levy of a special tax. It supports the quality of life for strategic plan. Once again, if there are any questions, we do have Chris Thomas from Harrison Associates here.
Thank you, Noah. Any questions from council? Comments? At this point, I'm gonna open up public hearing again. City Clerk, do you have any registered speakers?
Thank you, Mayor. There's no registered speakers. However, I'd like to call it on the Zoom call. If there's anyone on the Zoom that would like to speak, now is the time to raise your hand, and I will unmute you, and we'll give you just a few moments. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no registered public comment.
Okay, so I'm gonna close public hearing, and City Clerk, can you read off the special election results?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this ballot is for a special landowner election, Community Facilities District number 2005-1, annexation number 21. This ballot was provided to KLLHB3 AIV LLC, and we received 34 votes on the assessor parcels for 454-020-056. And the affirmative yes, and that was signed by Brianne Nicarant, Managing Director.
All right, if there's no more comments, do I have a motion from council? Any second?
I'll move to approve 14B.
Second.
Council, please cast your votes. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Meyer, second by Councilmember Brown. That motion passes 5-0.
So at this time, all consent calendar items will be acted upon simultaneously unless requested by an individual council member for separate consideration. Are there any members of the council that would like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar?
Yes.
Which,
I'd like to pull 15A and 15G.
are there any others?
I would like to pull I and J, please.
And if there's no others, do I have a motion to approve the rest?
So moved.
Second.
Council, please cast your votes. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilmember Brown.
I said,
That motion passes 5-0 to approve the consent calendar with the separate consideration of removal of items 15A, G, I, and J.
Let's begin with Councilmember Krupa, 15A.
yes, Chief. I think just about anybody in the public that would read this agenda item would kind of choke at the price that's attached to it. And I have read the staff report and I'm okay with the staff report considering what we're getting. But maybe if you could just elaborate a little bit for information wise of why a unit like this is necessary and why this price tag is attached to it.
Absolutely. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and members of our community. I'm Fire Chief Eddie Sell, and tonight I'm joined by one of our command staff chief officers, Battalion Chief Kevin Kuhlman, who is our SME on apparatus and has done a great job of doing a lot of the research and discovery on this particular unit. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Battalion Chief Kevin Kuhlman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Mayor, council members, thank you for a few moments of your time to kind of explain the high cost of this piece of equipment, which I understand. I could see that that thought. A type 6 fire apparatus is similar to a 4-door pickup. What we currently have and how we operate and run our medical aids within the city with Squad 1 is a 4-door pickup, 2 individuals that are on there running medical aids. So our idea and our plan was to incorporate a type 6 fire apparatus, which is a very similar pickup, but what it has on it, it also has firefighting capabilities. What it has is a slide-in pump on the back, still staffed with those same 2 individuals. Their main job daily is to still run medical aids within the city, but it adds to our capabilities when our engines are out on medical aids or other fires. When this unit is in service, it could still run a car fire. It can run a nuisance fire. There's a lot of fields that we have in this town that are vacant. And in the middle of the summer, those small fires that could be a half acre, quarter acre, can threaten a lot of the buildings that we have here in town. This piece of apparatus allows those 2 individuals to stay in that rig and be able to fight that fire from the rig, hold it in place until our other fire engines get there. So that was one of the biggest things. Our primary goal was that it also secondarily, it fulfills a contractual agreement that we have with the California OES system. So in 2021, Hemet Fire Department took delivery of OES 6611, which is a Station 2. It's a Type 6 piece of apparatus, identical to what we're using right now and what we're proposing for you to approve to purchase. What it is in that contract and taking that piece of apparatus, we've told the state of California that if that piece of apparatus is out of service mechanically or for any other reason, we will replace it with a like piece of apparatus. We do not have a like piece of apparatus to fill that contract we have with the state. By doing this, this allows us to fulfill that contract. And what it does is it helps us continue to support the statewide mutual aid mission. And that means at any time, Northern California, Central California, even Southern California, if there's a fire, they'll call for those OES engines and they'll be dispatched. The best example of us, especially the city of Hemet, benefiting from that Cal OES system was the Fairview fire that we had last month. Without those hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of firefighters that showed up here to help protect the city of Hemet, without us participating in that mutual aid system and that agreement, we would have been on our own with Cal Fire. So the result would have been dire. So the last part of it is the funds for this piece of equipment are coming from Measure U. I know that we've used Measure U to enhance our capabilities, not only on the street with boots on the ground, but also with equipment. This is another direct effect on what Measure U does for the city of Hemet.
Thank you very much. Very thorough report and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, I would suggest anyone in the audience to Google Type 6 engine, and it is a phenomenal piece for sure. And if any of you were here for the open house last weekend, there was our OES unit Type 6 was in the parking lot over here, and it's a phenomenal piece of equipment. I really appreciate it, and your staff report was very thorough.
You're welcome. One last thing I want to add, Chief asked me to mention, Cal Fire has a Type 6 at Station 26 here in town. We're modeling our Type 6 off of what Murrieta has. They have 2 Type 6s. They have them pretty much across the state right now. It's more of a newer piece of apparatus. It's cheaper. It's more nimble. Can be staffed by 2 people, but it broadens what we can do not just on the medical side of majority of what our job is, but on the fire side when needed.
And another good example, the other night, there was a medical aid call and on the way back, there was a fire behind Sioux City. So instead of sending the engine back, we could have just hosed it down.
Exactly. And if that type 6, which would become a medic patrol unit, if they drove upon it, they could keep that engine in service and take care of what that needs right there.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you. If there's you have a question, because I want to approve this.
Just a comment that I appreciate the thoroughness of the staff report, and I don't think you mentioned one of the real benefits, the additional benefits is the maneuverability and how this little bit smaller apparatus can access areas that an engine might not be able to get into.
You're exactly right. And that did come up. It was discussed that it adds to our maneuverability if we need to get around Diamond Valley Lake at all, some of the other areas here in town. So it just adds another tool to our toolbox, makes us better than what we have right now, and it helps the citizens at the same time.
I would move approval of item 15A.
Second.
Council, please cast your votes. I have a motion by Councilmember Krupa, second by Councilmember Brown. That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, item number 15G.
Yes, I have a question on 15G.
This is approving a subdivision agreement, improvement, security, and final track map 35393, located at the southwest corner of Mustang Way and Fisher Street.
Yes, not so much asking a question on anything that's in the report, but just something that is connected to this report in a program that we had years ago of the public's opportunity to name a street if they were the winning bidder at a silent auction, which raised funds for Valley-wide. Now, we haven't done that for a number of years. I don't know if there's anybody still hanging in the pipeline of having a street name, but that was one of the silent auction items. And whoever the winning bid was would have to, I mean, if their street name was approved, they got a street name, whatever they wanted to be named. And I think Tom Garnella might have been one of the last ones. I don't know if his street ever got named because at that point, we kind of went into a decline on building homes. But since we have all of these new developments going in, I just thought I'd ask if you know anything about that.
That's the first I heard of it.
Okay.
But it does sound interesting. I know they have a hard time coming up with names sometimes. That might be helpful.
If you could research that, and because I know we had it for years and years and years, and quite frankly, it would raise good money for Valley Restart Foundation, or not Valley Restart, Valley-wide. And
I do think I remember hearing it there, but I didn't. Yeah.
It's just, I thought it was a good program and something to really get the community involved in having local street names, because some of our families, our longtime families, do have streets named after them, but they go way, way back. And it's something we need to start again. We could have Lilienthal Way, you know?
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
I like it.
So if you could check that out.
Certainly will.
Thank you. No questions on that, but with that comment, I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. And with that, I would approve it if there's no other comments. I'll second that.
Council, please cast your votes. I have a motion by Councilmember Krupa, second by Mayor Pro Tem Meyer. That motion passes 5-0.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, item number 15I.
All right, 15I is the resolution for painting the library. And I definitely have got to tell staff, I'm so excited that you got so many bids, because it drives me crazy when you only bring us like 2 and we have like 22. So this is awesome. How do you narrow it down besides pricing to make sure, I mean, you understand, like we take the cheapest bidder, and I get all that, but this is quite a range. So maybe you could explain that to us, Charles.
Sure.
So good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Charles Russell, Public Works Operation Manager. With that, we always start with, take a look at the bids. We start from the lowest and go to the highest, and we start to call references. And we basically start from the beginning. And once we check the references and we are happy with the references, we stop at that point. Then we check to see that they have met all the criteria that was required with the scope of work. So in this case, all of the bidders are required, of course, to pay prevailing wage. All of the bidders are required to use a high brand, commercial quality brand paint. All of the bidders are required to visit the site and to see what the city is requesting to have done. And so once we take all of those into consideration, we go ahead and make our determination between myself, the director, and our facilities supervisor. We get together, take a look at them, and shoot we go back and forth and figure out who we're going to go with. This is the first time that I've ever seen this many bids.
That's pretty
So
good.
that's something new for me as well. Normally we get up, like you said, 1, 2, 3 bids at the most. So when we got this, I think at that point, Candace, the procurement manager, told me that that was a record. But
Okay.
then the following week, I think Noah got another bid back, and there were above 20 bids. So I don't know what's changed. She submits the bids to Planet Bids, and people are being notified and given the opportunity to bid.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And one of my questions was if they visited the site, so you answered that. I appreciate that. So with that, I move to approve 15I as presented.
I'll second that.
Mayor Pro Tem, one of the questions was what has changed. I wanted to loop this back. In the staff report, you'll notice that we reference the informal procurement process for public works. This is something that the city council adopted back in May of this year that really took these smaller projects at the city and made the procurement process much more accessible and transparent for all of our local vendors. And so when you're looking at these type of projects, instead of having to turn in 100 pages of documents, as you saw here, they're only a few pages, so it becomes much more accessible. So I think on those smaller projects, you're going to see a wider range of bids. You'll see much better pricing for the city, and you'll be able to see those projects move forward quickly. And I just want to tie it back to a policy decision that this council had made.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When we're on that, if I can be kind of nitpicky and ask the city attorney, the word supplemental means in addition to. Are we doing an appropriation in addition to the appropriation when we say supplemental appropriation? So, because I'm reading that and I'm going, okay, there's the bid, there's the contingency. It's a supplemental appropriation. So are we really doing it twice?
That's
Or is
fair
that a
point.
technicality?
As you know, words are my game.
Yes.
And we look at the original budget action as the appropriation. And then
Okay.
any further changes to that is a supplemental appropriation. So I know it may seem like doublespeak, but that is the way your government talks.
I appreciate that. And my second to Carly's motion still stands.
Council, please cast your votes. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Myers, second by Councilmember Krupa. That motion passes 5-0.
And finally, 15J.
All right, 15J is also the one I pulled. And without you having to go through the entire presentation, I'm excited to see that we're upgrading this equipment. I've seen the blackouts and the other, and I would like to maybe have you explain the use of iPads. Like we've talked about, I talked to you guys earlier today about the approved iPads earlier in the year. And so if you could just explain the difference and the pricing and everything. Awesome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the community. So in the spirit of making the Hemet Fire Department more efficient and embracing innovation and technology, this is another endeavor that's going to assist with strategic plan goals, including better response times for the Hemet Fire Department. So with that, tonight's the lucky night for Battalion Chief Kevin Coleman. He is our SME on this, and so I'm going to pass it on to Chief Coleman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, council members, thank you again for a few moments of your time. So tablet command, this is a additional step in the dispatch process. When someone calls 911, whether it's medical call or a fire call, it comes into the dispatch center. It goes through CAD, which is a company by the name of Mark 43, who provides our computer aided dispatching. Our dispatchers send it to our fire units, and then we go to our calls. So Mark 43 is something that's new. It's been around about 7 or 8 years. Started in Northern California. It was created by firefighters for firefighters to make things more friendly on the dispatching side, on the fire side. So what Tablet Command does is it takes Mark 43, which is our current CAD, and makes it better. They work really well together. So Tablet Command is creating what's called an interface with Mark 43 right now. So what happens is that information then goes from Mark 43 to our iPads, whether it's a chief officer, an engine, our medic patrol unit, or anybody else within our department, and sends that critical incident information to that unit as fast as possible. So what it does is it creates this interface. It improves our situational awareness of where our units are at. Once we do get on scene, it improves our firefighter accountability and our safety of our firefighters that are on scene. We're able to see what units are on scene on a computer, where they're at. You can drag on the iPad, put them where they need to be. Our regional area, CAL FIRE, who is around us, they are on Tablet Command. So when they come into our city, we know what units there, where they're at, vice versa. When we get called to a CAL FIRE area, they can see our units there. When we go in Northern California on fires, you can see pretty much anything across the board as well. Our soon-to-be hired Deputy Chief Ryan Webb in the back from San Bernardino County. In his hand, he's got Tablet Command on his tablet. San Bernardino County's been with Tablet Command for multiple years. Excellent product. It helps firefighter safety. It helps accountability. So back to your question on iPads. We did purchase, and City Council approved the purchase of 12 iPads back this spring. And those iPads were 10-inch iPads, and they were used for our electronic patient care reporting. So when we run a medical call or a car accident, our firefighter medics are required to write a patient care report, and they use those iPads for that patient care report. So those iPads are for the back of the engine. This iPad system is for the front of the engine. It's going to give mapping for our captains to go to calls. It's going to give turn-by-turn directions. For myself as a battalion chief, when I go to calls within the city and I don't know exactly where that call is, with Tablet Command, I can put it on turn-by-turn and it'll tell me where to turn. Instead of me looking down while I'm driving 40 miles an hour down the street or faster, creating liability and risk to myself and the city and the citizens, it'll tell me where to turn. So that's a safer thing for everybody. It will help the captains and the engines to do the same thing. It's going to improve our mutual aid capabilities, like I said, with CAL FIRE. Murrieta Fire is getting ready to go to Tablet Command as well. CAL FIRE is around us. San Diego County, there's a lot of units down there that already have Tablet Command. The financial costing of this program, what I put together, around $85,000, has no effect to the general fund or to Measure U. This comes out of our AMR penalty fee account. So how that works is AMR is our ambulance provider here within the city. When they're dispatched to a call, they're delayed or coming from further areas out, and our engine's sitting on scene, then if their response time is over a 9-minute period, they get charged a fee for a longer penalty, basically, for getting on scene. So in a 1-year period, in like a calendar year, we'll gather between $80,000 to $120,000 from AMR paid back to the city. It goes into account used for system enhancements such as this that will make us better responding to the emergencies for the citizens within the city. Another nice thing that comes with this, and we'll have up to 100 different user accounts, is I know how each one of the council members here likes to know when there's a structure fire or a major incident in your district. Right now, it goes through a slower system where the BC on scene sends a text to the fire chief sends it to the council members and the city manager, and sometimes there's a delay in that. Each one of you on council will have an ability to create a user account. You'll be notified on your personal phone if you want of a structure fire. You'll know what district it's in. You'll actually be able to watch on your phone what units are on scene and where we move those units, how long they're on scene. units that come from out of the city from the county. You'll see those units on there as well. So it's another tool, just like we talked about the Type 6, that makes us better, makes our relationship with the dispatch center better, and it allows us to give better customer service to the citizens here in Hemet. The iPads you asked about, we are going to purchase, and we're looking to purchase 17 iPads, obviously larger ones, because they're going to be in the front of each engine, the Chiefs rig, battalion rig, things like that. So they're a little bit larger. They're 12-inch iPads. Those are strictly for tablet command, mapping, pre-plans, things such as that. We went through a competitive bid process, received 3 bids. The bid, I think, is awarded to Verizon. Verizon did give the city, I think, $100 per iPad discount. An iPad runs about $1,100. Our current mobile data books that we have in our engines are Panasonic Toughbooks, kind of an older technology, and those are running about $3,500 a piece. So using iPads is a little bit more financially responsible because it's cheaper than the Panasonic Toughbooks and a little bit more versatile. Questions?
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted you to explain that to us.
One more time, this is not coming out of general fund or Measure U?
It is not, no, AMR penalty fee account.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, with that, I'll move approval. Thank you very much.
And I'm happy to second that, but I'd like to briefly editorialize. I was at an event recently and I heard reference to some of the technological upgrades that our public safety departments are acquiring. And I heard a reference to those as toys. And I took exception to that because I started my public safety career as a dispatcher. And the evolution of what I used to do as a dispatcher to what is capable of being done today is phenomenal. And it all goes towards enhancing the response time, because the call handling time of a dispatcher to handwrite something down while cradling a telephone on your shoulder and then punching a time clock and pushing a button to dispatch units, and then the units that are getting dispatched having to handwrite down on a notepad where they're going. This is phenomenal. Plus the fact that if you're going into a jurisdiction on mutual aid, you'll have the mapping. So, everybody's familiar with their own jurisdiction, but when you go outside that, having that mapping capability is just going to enhance the response time. So I just wanted to editorialize a little bit that these technological advances are all to enhance the public safety service delivery, and they're not toys.
Yes, and I would like to add something to that too, because I heard the word toys out of that person's mouth also, and that was very disturbing to me. And what was more disturbing is when I was on scene last night at the fire, I got to watch BC Coolman here operate without the Toughbook working. The screen was black. And so for him to sit there and do his job, his only contact was to the radio dispatcher. He did not have access to the Toughbook. It was completely black. So it was good. I was glad that I happened to be there and I was able to see, since this decision was tonight. So I think that was important and good timing. So thank you and good job last night.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
In a second.
Motion, I second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Myers, second by Councilmember Brown. That motion passes unanimously 5-0.
That completes our consent calendar. Moving on to city council and staff reports. Let's begin with Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Very brief to report. Nothing on most of these items. The WCE board meeting will be next week, and as will the WRCOG meeting. So I'll have reports at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Krupa.
Okay.
be prepared to be here for a while. I have a lot of reports.
Okay.
I'm joking. Okay, but I do have a few. For the library, they had their meeting last Friday, and unfortunately I missed it. But I did hear that one of our constituents who has applied for a trustee's position was there and enjoyed the meeting. Thank you, Felicia, for being there. Anyway, story time is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Trick or treat is on Saturday from 9 to 1. Enjoy the exhibits that are there celebrating the holidays at the library. And there is a video of the library on YouTube. So just search Halloween at the Hemet Public Library and turn on your sound. It's impressive. Let's see, what else? The RCTC, Riverside County Transportation Commission, Western County Projects. We had a committee meeting the other day. Two things of note: the closure of the I-91 in Corona that took place on I think it was eastbound lanes over the weekend, was finished earlier than they expected. So the freeway was opened earlier, but do expect that to happen off and on in the next several months because there's some subsidence in the infrastructure. The other thing that we approved to go onto council or onto the commission next month is a smart highways study of the Interstate 15 from the San Diego County line, San Diego Riverside County line, up to where the 15 and the 215 split, called the Temecula, whatever, slow down. And it's a survey that they do to limit and program the number of cars entering the freeway and the speed at which the freeway is currently going. So we all kind of said, let's hope this works because it's like going through Corona, going through Temecula. Be prepared to spend an extra half hour to 45 minutes on the freeway. And the other thing that Riverside Transit Agency, it's still 25-cent rides for seniors and students up until June of 2023. And this coming election day, it's free rides for everybody to encourage people to get to the polls. Free rides on buses on election day. That's it. Free what?
Councilmember Males.
All righty. The skate park will be here one day, hopefully by 2000 something. And hopefully we're finalizing the contract amendment that allows the additional landscaping scope of work to be added to the city agreement with the new line skate parks. This amendment should end the latest pause in process. We're now pushing to get the final documents from New Line Skate Parks within the next couple of weeks to put the project out for bid. This is to both, the other chief left. Are you familiar with AB 662? Okay, then I'll read it. AB 662, this is a League of California Cities, was signed into law at the end of their session, marks an important step towards addressing the acute and chronic traumas of duty, as well as the stigmas surrounding the mental health. The measure will create a peer-to-peer suicide prevention curriculum for firefighters and emergency medical services personnel. This is crucial as general mental health practitioners often lack the background knowledge needed to provide the first responders with culturally competent care. The bill was sponsored by Cal Cities, the California Fire Chiefs Association, and the Fire Districts Association of California, Cal Cities, and its partners will continue to work with the administration to secure the resources needed to facilitate this programming in next year's budget. Governor Gavin Newsom And the legislature also committed $50 million towards officer wellness grants in this year's budget, which will be distributed to local law enforcement agencies throughout the state. Much like firefighters, police officers are often exposed to a variety of incidents that lead to mental exhaustion and burnout and overall poor mental health. Improving mental health for police officers from recruitment to retirement is imperative for both personnel and the communities they serve. Additional information such as funding allocations, when funds will be released, and reporting requirements will be posted on the California Board of State and Community Corrections website. Cal Cities will also release information as it becomes available. And also for chiefs that take on the position as city managers and chief of police. I'm done.
Yeah, now I know what the assembly bill is.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about AB 662, right? Help city manager, police chiefs. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. We do not have an investment oversight committee meeting coming up as of yet, but if one is scheduled, then everyone that's signed up will be notified. There's possibility that we could have one within the next 2 weeks, so we'll let you know. Our new treasurer, Dealman. Let me see. You want me to throw my ad hoc in here? Ad hoc report? Okay. I'm still walking down Florida. I walked the other night from my house by Cornell to Weston Park by myself. And so it was a good walk. I met my husband down there. Another thing I have to report is this is for our homeless outreach team. There was a church group that had an event at the park probably 2 weeks ago on a Sunday night. And a man came from the hospital in scrubs, and he had obviously left AMA from the hospital. He was able to go home with the House of Luke Ministries, and they were able to reunite him with his family. So it prays all around. He's not on our streets anymore, and it was a very good situation. So they came to the worship service, and then they also took the man home and kept him for a few weeks and was able to reunite him. So I just wanted to let everybody know there's progress being made on our streets every day. We got to keep working on that. There's a young man, Andrew, who was supposed to meet me last night, and he didn't show up. So I'm going to go looking for him tonight, but they're waiting for him also at House of Luke. So we've got movement happening on our streets, and I know that our CityNet has been also working their end. So I don't have their statistics, but I know that they're posted regularly on the city's website. All right, with that, I don't have anything else.
Their averages just keep rising. What was it, 23 last month?
Yeah, it was the highest month that I
Yeah.
had.
23 street exits. And then, well, for my community action, somebody left the meeting, so we didn't have quorum. So I don't have anything to report on that. Do you guys have anything to add for ad hocs?
Business meeting November 14th, I believe at 3:30.
Or I'll double check, but I believe it's at 4.
Yeah, so the business meeting will be on November 14th.
At 4 p.m. 3:30.
Mayor, there's one thing that I neglected to report on. Just briefly, I wanted to mention that the mayor and I attended the most recent Student of the Month event. And if you've never had a chance to attend that event, I would highly recommend it. It is the most uplifting experience to see. We see so much negative stuff about the youth of today. And when you go to those events and see the students recognize who have overcome incredible challenges and difficulties in their personal lives, and to achieve that recognition and the academic success that they have, it's phenomenal. So anytime you go in there feeling woe is me, poor me. You come out of that experience saying, I've got nothing to compare with what these kids have persevered through. So it's a great program, and proud to have it happening in our valley.
I think every session I've been there, I've cried because when you listen to these kids' stories, this time it was an adult that had us in tears. But they just talk about like their experiences and what they go through, adversities, cancer, you name it, domestic violence, parents dying, some of them are in foster care, but they just talk about how they persevered and they end up on, student of the month. And some of them have stories like they didn't like to go to school, and then, they met someone who kind of encouraged them. And then, so now they're a continuation of school, but then they got their grades back up. And we were talking about kids who shouldn't have graduated, but they got their stuff together and made those choices because someone spoke into their life, or because they moved different schools, they got more attention, and it really helped them so they didn't fall through the cracks. So it was like very moving experience whenever you hear those students talk about that. Anything else? City manager?
Yeah, just to confirm, it is November 14th at 4 p.m. regarding the business meeting. And a couple things to highlight, events that are happening in the city. We have the Health and Housing Resource Fair. That's tomorrow, Wednesday, October 26th. We have the Hemet Fall Festival, Friday, October 28th. Fitness court launch, Saturday, October 29th. That's a ribbon cutting for the fitness court. And then we have the Dia de los Muertos, Wednesday, November 2nd. State of the City address, Friday, November 4th, and Christmas parade, Saturday, December 3rd. So that should be all posted and going out to the community.
Anybody want to add any future agenda items? There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned to the next city council meeting on November 8th, which is also election day. Be sure to get out and vote on November 8th. Thank you for joining us. Me.